Hello, and welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of leadership and organizational culture. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers. Together, we're here to guide you on a journey of personal and professional growth. Every week, we bring you insights, stories, and strategies to help you and your company thrive in today's dynamic world.
So whether you're leading a team, running a business, or just eager to make a positive impact, you are in the right place. Let's jump right into today's show and champion a culture of purpose and passion. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. Well, good afternoon, George.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, fine gentlemen.
Yes. Welcome everybody who's watching us live, listening to us live, and or on your platform of podcast. We thank you for joining us.
Podcast of
Place of choice.
Place of choice. Of
man, it's Monday, yo. What do you want me to do? I'm still getting the jitters. I haven't had enough coffee. I don't have any coffee in sight. Actually, I'm going coffee less.
Really?
The problem is that I always say I want to start eating a little bit better.
Yeah.
But that box of candy still in our corner of our pocket.
Yeah.
But with coffee, I'm one or the other. I'm all black.
Yeah.
Or I like that Starbucks white chocolate.
All the stuff added
mocha,
to it.
Caramel syrup.
Yeah.
And it just gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
My problem is that I'm like that country song. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. I tried so hard. And so it's like,
you
to not start my day, I just water.
Nice. Well, good for you.
And then I go sugar free.
Less. I'm going coffee more.
Coffee more.
Coffee more. Yeah, I'm definitely getting to a place where I'm drinking way too much coffee.
Well, I mean,
that's for sure.
Coffee is you love coffee though. It's like just normal for you to have 2 or 3 cups.
It's a normal and in the evening, which is, I know in the United States it's like a weird thing to drink coffee at night, but that's not the case across the world. I mean, coffee is.
Well, you have dessert coffees and things.
Yeah. I enjoy it. It never keeps me up at night, and gives me energy, and it just tastes good, man. So, but I like to grind my own beans, or the whole process of not just like going and buying a coffee, which I do that as well. This morning I had mine from Dunkin'.
Okay.
Dunkin' makes some good coffee because East Coast is all Dunkin'.
Yeah. Dunkin's decent.
Yeah.
They're good for the coffee. The donuts now, they're not in my top 3.
No, well,
not in my top 3.
I mean, local donuts are always better than I mean, you can't get really good donuts that are going to beat local donuts.
True.
So in Indianapolis, best donuts. Longs?
Oh, so I love Longs.
Yeah.
If you're way out east in a small town of Greenfield, shout out to Sweets.
Yeah.
Donuts, they're good. And then I just had some donuts, and I don't remember the name of it. It's a donut shop in Whiteland, right off of 65 and Worthville exit. You take it about maybe a mile or so on the left.
Really good.
They're really decent.
Yeah.
But the thing about Longs, because everybody knows Longs in the white box, there's Longs on the south side, then there's Longs on the shot side. By shot side, it's a dangerous neighborhood. You might get shot. Shout out to my home area. It's not that bad anymore.
That's
Hallville
my home area too.
Hallville.
Hallville.
But that's when and with the donuts, and people, there's donut snobs. I mean, it's greasy.
Yeah.
But if you leave Longs, you want to make sure you don't put them on your Sunday dress when you go to church.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? It might get a little bit of
you want to grease in.
Yeah, you want to put a bag. You want to put some paper towels now.
I think my favorite in Indy would be Jack's.
Jack's.
I like Jack's.
They're coming up.
Because I like. For me, my favorite donut is the apple fritter, which I know
is it a donut?
Well, yeah. Well, a fritter is a donut without a hole.
Gotcha. So for those of you who are listening or watching, in the comments right now, drop down. I want to know a couple of things. One, how you drink your coffee. Are you straight just coffee, black, or do you have a lot of you get some creams and some sugar?
Black coffee,
and then what is your favorite type of donut? I'm interested in that. Yeah. Do you take just a good yeast? Do you like the Bavarian cream? You like the strawberry?
I think a better question.
What's the better question?
The better question is, what's the best donut shop in your hometown?
Ooh.
Because if we're traveling,
you want to know?
Yeah, I don't want to know what
I just said.
Like strawberry donuts.
America, our culture network out there, all our culture champions are listening.
We need to know where all.
I literally started our podcast off explaining the importance of me not having coffee today because I wanted to limit my sugar. Now here it is.
Donuts.
Here he is.
Said coffee, not
trying to find the shops that we can take to go increase my sugar high.
And I bet they have good coffee too. That's a thing. Don't talk about how good your coffee shop is if they don't have good coffee. Or donut shops if you don't have good coffee.
Yeah.
A great donut shop will have good coffee. Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's my perspective on donuts, coffee, sugar, and all the goodies.
Yeah. So last week we talked on our podcast and got good feedback from it on the conflict.
Yeah.
And dealing with that in the workplace.
The 4 horsemen.
Was a great outline, especially whether it's for those who are in leadership and management, for all our HR leaders out there, is really good concept and strategy to be able to use and implement from a coaching some of your team members as well. And today, and this is going to be a 2-part series. We're really excited about this. Kicking off today series with humans at work.
Yeah.
Right. Rehumanizing that workplace in the aspect of how to deal with some of the mental health. We know coming up here in a few weeks, starting off in May 1st to the 31st is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yep.
And we wanted to kind of throw out some things to help prepare. A lot of times we talk about these as it's going on, and we thought together, man, it'd be good to just put this content out beforehand, and let's put it out so people can prepare for it.
Yeah.
Right. And be able to use it. So,
and I like the idea of mental health, but specifically talking about how to avoid burnout.
Yeah.
And this topic really matters because as we're consulting with the companies that we work with around their culture and leadership development, the thing that we always get back to is the amount of change that is taking place in organizations right now.
Right.
The amount of companies that we're talking to right now that we work with either directly or indirectly that are taking on pretty major projects that are shifting many times, even how companies are addressing their organizational structure to support some of these projects. And there's a lot of change, tumultuous change taking place in the workplace, which always leads to burnout, right? When change is happening, that creates an environment where we're more susceptible to burnout in the midst of change. I would say that. And so I think this topic is a crucial one. I think it's a crucial one that we should have all the time.
Yeah.
But right now, as we're thinking about mental health and well-being, and as we always say, like, we're all in the business of well-being.
Yeah.
Some people are in the well-being business, but I say we're all in the business of well-being.
Right.
Because we are, work is human, right? It is humans at work. It's not, we can't separate the humanity from the productivity of the workplace, right? When we're not able to bring our soul to work, when we don't feel like we have the energy to put forward our best effort, it's going to impact our productivity. It's going to impact the bottom line of the company. But at the very core of it, let's be honest, it's going to impact the well-being, the mental health, the emotional health, the lives of the people that work with us and for us.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say we're all in the business of well-being.
Right.
Because we all are leading people, and as we're rehumanizing that experience, and as we embark on the next 10 to 20 years in the scope of the workplace, I can see that the key skill that leaders are going to need is directly tied to people skills. Sometimes what we would call like those soft skills that seem to be hard for most of us.
Right.
I hate to call a softball if you've ever been hit by one.
Right.
You can call it a softball all day long,
you want
but it's not a soft skill. It's a hard skill.
Yeah.
Because it does impact and it does have bearing on all the aspects of our business. That's why we say culture impacts everything and everything impacts culture.
Right.
Because culture is people, right? It's how we're feeling first, believing and behaving.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to, by the time we see the behavior of our team members as leaders, I think in this first part of this series, next week, we're going to talk about how to deal with it ourselves and deal with our own burnout. But how do we recognize and deal with the burnout of our team? How do we see that?
Yeah.
That as leaders, we have to begin to just consistently be aware of it right now, specifically because of so much change that's taken place in all of our organizations, and how imperative it is as a leader for this to be part of our calling and a part of what we do every day. Is we take care of people. We're in the business of people. At the end of the day, we're in the people business.
We are. So I want to just read as we get into some of the strategies and things that we've learned and or applied in our personal life as well as business.
Sure.
I feel like we need to have a song in a moment.
Yeah.
I want to share some data. So can we?
Yeah.
Can we go ahead and kick off this? This research is coming
from
Lighthouse Research and Advisory.
Shout out to Ben Eubanks.
Yeah.
Eubanks, iBanks, we all banks together. All right.
Data.
What does the data say?
What does the data say? What does the data say? What does the data say? Data.
The best part of
the best part of the song is the end of it. So what we found over the last year or so is because it's done. But burnout and stress are key reasons, right, that people quit. We talk about why are people staying, why are people leaving. We always, a lot of people say people leave leadership or culture, but burnout is one of those reasons as well. Behind pay, burnout and stress is the biggest factor in why people are quitting their jobs. And so some of the things that really stuck out to me that I thought was key, the top three ways employers say learning can help them mentally from a mental health standpoint was stress management training. We talk about the development of leadership development and developing people, but how to deal with stress. Teach me how to do that, because not just in life, but even in life, because oftentimes, as we say, work and life, there's no balance or separation of that. It is work plus life.
It's life.
And harmony with those things, right? The rhythm of it. So how do I deal with stress as an individual? Don't teach me about stress at work. Teach me how to manage stress, period. Right? How these things can apply both personal and also vocational. The second thing is providing growth opportunities, right? Knowing that, hey, I'm at a place where I'm going to be developed and it's long-term. That's going to help me out mentally to know that, hey, I'm been developed as an individual. Whether it's, hey, George, we want you to stay here for 5 years, or hey, George, we want you to grow, develop, but you have the potential to be more than what we have here. But we're going to do everything we can to get you where you need to be for when you're ready, right? So the growth. And the third thing was developing capable people leaders. Now, this is something that I feel like is intriguing for both of us, because it's a concept and a belief that if we're developing people, right, we're leading people. So developing more people leaders in all these aspects of stress management and things of the nature is important to them. Other key factors and stats that I mentioned, and we can just kind of break this down because I think it applies to where we're going to go. 98% of employers say that learning has tied into well-being. Right. So it's tied into who we are and how we're working. 7 in 10 workers would be interested in training for stress management. Said that earlier. And then the last one that I wanted to read real quickly is employers with a strategic learning function are 72% more likely to say that developing people leaders is a contributor to workplace mental health. So we see all these signs that are showing that, hey, if we develop our people, if we invest in our leaders, not only for their sake, but what it does to our culture, right? And the employees. And so when we try to say, hey, how do we recognize the burnout? How do we deal with the stress? How do we, stop or at least limit so much burnout? There's going to be some that are not going to be able to deal with the management or apply the tips and things that you're giving out there. But burnout and stress, being some of the key reasons that jobs are being evacuated in a sense.
Eliminated
in a sense.
Evacuated. Where they're leaving. Well, they're leaving. You think about burnout. You said something earlier that people leave because of their leaders. And and that your leader can contribute to a burnout. So that is still true.
Yeah.
So when we think about burnout, there's a lot of reasons why employees or why team members get burnout. Why, as a leader, it's important for us to recognize those contributing factors to burnout, right? To your point, like when there is not work-life harmony, when the demands of work require that my team member takes away from their family time in order to get extra work done for me, right? While I'm on the golf course.
Yeah.
And the person that's working for me has to work all weekend and take away from their family. And so that's a contributing factor, is the demands of work have become so great that the person can't actually even function without getting burnt out.
Yeah.
You don't get burnt out overnight. You start burning.
Yeah. Right.
You burn up.
The house don't burn down.
You burn up
starts.
and then you burn out.
Yeah.
And the burn up takes a while.
Yeah.
And the problem is, and we know it all the time, the people that get burnt out because many times it's not because they're bad, even at stress management. It's that there's no way to manage their stress because there's no way to not be stressed out, right? At work, because of the demands of work. The only way that they could, that stress could be eliminated is for the leader to recognize, which is what we're talking about in this, is like, how do I start to see my team members getting burnt up? Not burnt out. When you start seeing team members burn out, it's over, man.
I'm smelling fire.
Yeah.
Right? I see smoke.
Smoke.
Yeah. I'm smelling and seeing the smoke.
Well,
where's it coming from and what's causing it?
What's the smoke signal?
Yeah.
Like, read the smoke signals. When people start to burn up, they're leading toward burnout. And I think those smoke signals are disengagement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to team dynamics and all of that.
And we're talking about now how to recognize these signs of burnout.
How to see it with
how to see it. Yeah. Let's dig into this. So number one, if we were to say, hey, how do we recognize the signs of burnout? As we talk about this, in that sense, what are some of the signs of the smoke? What's the smoke signal?
Smoke signals.
Let's talk about them.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Disengagement.
Yep. That's one.
Right. When things are happening at work, this person elects to not be involved in activities,
right,
or separates himself from the team. When there's team building dynamic around that, overall lack of connection at work. Sometimes we can just see the body language, right? I mean, you know when someone's struggling, bro.
Right.
At least you should.
Yep.
As a leader, if you have to really look really far to see that somebody's burnt out, then you don't know that person. Because when you know somebody, you can sense it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when we become cynical of the workplace, we talked about it last week with the conflict. Become critical of everything and everybody. Sometimes that's a symptom or like a smoke signal of getting burnout. What are some other things that you can think
for me, because I've experienced this probably twice in my life. First time, it's one of those things that you wonder if it's depression, right? Versus just it's workplace burnout, because you're fine everywhere else in life. And you're so happy to pull out of that driveway. Right. For me, it was the fatigue. And sometimes the second time was more physical than it was emotionally and mental. Right. So you got to understand fatigue is not just a physically, I'm tired and I drain. It's mentally being fatigued, where your thoughts are not normal. Right. You're not being able to be accurate in the work production. Maybe sometimes you'll see people that are very good, man. They think a little bit faster. Solid thoughts, right? But if they're experiencing the smoke signal of they're slipping, they're in a sense distracted mentally, trying to get through, but also facing reality of, I probably don't want to be here. So you have that fatigue where you feel tired more than usual, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. Right. One of the most common symptoms of that burnout is that. The other ones is, for dissatisfaction at the job, when you You find happiness at the job, and all of a sudden you're dissatisfied. This kind of plays a little bit into what we talked about last week with the conflict, right? If you're dealing with so much of that conflict with your work, it'll wear you out. That will lead right to burnout. And so if you missed last week's episode, I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode, because this really goes hand in hand with, if not dealing with conflict, it is a what can we call it? It's a symptom. It's a leader into burnout. So being dissatisfied, and then maybe I'm burnt out, Ryan, because I think about the changing of your diet and sleep.
Well, in
a sense, I'm not burnt out, ladies and gentlemen. I'm feeling the best I've ever felt the last month. I'm sleeping better.
You're getting better though.
I got some little oxygen going through my body.
Right.
But
burnout will impact.
It'll alter those things.
Be hungry, so you stop eating as much.
Yep.
You lose sleep. You go home and you're stressed out at work. I always say you can't have a happy life and be miserable at work in a miserable job, because, like you mentioned earlier, it's all one and the same. It's all life. And so you get home, you're stressed out. The kids need to go there and here. You still have work to do. There's one of your kids has a show at school and you have to go to that, and you're going to be spending 2 hours watching everybody else's kids until your kid can play the violin, and then you got to go home and finish up this work, and the stress, and it just compounds.
Right.
And so eventually, it impacts your eating, it impacts your mood, it impacts your sleep. And when you're not getting sleep and you're going back into a stressful environment, and you're dealing with conflict on a potentially on a daily basis, or leadership that's not supportive. I mean, that's why we have this podcast and this show, to be able to not only speak to each of us individually, but to speak to us as leaders and our impact and the example that we set. But I think, feeling like we don't have a sense of purpose. We lose. We feel useless.
Powerless.
And powerless. I think, and many times we'll feel frustrated, so there's all kinds of smoke signals that say I'm burning up, or one of my team members is burning up. But we got to look for those, because our team member may not come and say, listen, I'm burning up here, like this is too much. Especially as people are getting laid off and companies are going through shifts and org changes. Nobody wants to be on the chopping block. So everybody's like, I'm just going to go to work, get my work done, fly under the radar, not shake, not tell anybody I got issues. I don't want to be an issue for anybody.
Right.
And so we've dehumanized the work experience.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even on that, I think one of the most impactful ones when it comes to the smoke signals and other issues that really concern me, Ryan, is that the physical symptom, what it can do physically. We talk about the impact of stress, not just from headaches, I'm talking about, I've seen and know people that dealt with severe stomach issues, intestinal issues that led because of stress of work. Right. And so the physical impact that it does on your body, it's not just from the neck up. It flows, right?
Your whole body.
It begins with the thought. It begins in the mind, and that mind fuses through the body. We talk about where we hold our stress a lot of the times, in that factor. And so, when we talk about one of the key areas, recognizing the signs of burnout, the symptoms, the smoke signals, these are some of the things that are concerning that you can see in your team and in yourself. I'm excited as we continue this conversation, not to get ahead to next week's talk, but on the self.
Yourself.
We're going to talk about that coming up in the next episode. But these are some of the signs, and we always talk about the regular check-ins with yourself, and we're going to get into that next week as well. But encouraging for me when it comes to seeing these signs, whether I'm an employee on the team or a leader on a team, I want to encourage you, and by you, our audience, encourage you to make sure that you have that, as we talked about last week, that open communication, right? Fostering a culture of open and honest dialogue. I had a conversation with one of our listeners, and a good friend of mine has joined us from HR summer school, Misha, and she messaged me, hey, how are you doing? And I said, I'm okay. I'm not good.
Yeah.
You know, and I was very honest. And she's like, you know what? Thank you for not giving me the generic answer.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable, because that's the world we live in, where we don't have that open and honest feedback. Now, I told her, I don't do this with everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I choose who I'm vulnerable to.
Right.
Because some people will use it against you.
Yeah.
Right. And so you do have to have guardrails on that in a sense, and boundaries on how far. Right. But just in the border, hey, if you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay and say, hey, listen, today's not the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you say, hey, I'm doing good, and somebody wants to crack a joke because they know that's the relationship you have, and then that joke goes downhill because you're not mentally in the mood for it.
Yeah.
But you just said that you're okay. So having that honest feedback to where you can be vulnerable to say, hey, I'm just not in the mood today.
Yeah. I think that honesty really, really matters.
It does.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, whether we're telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
About ourselves.
Right.
Because when we consistently lie about ourselves, I don't know that that's healthy.
Yeah.
And so when people consistently ask, how are you doing? We say, okay, it's fine to say, okay, if you don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think there's opportunity there to be vulnerable and be honest with people when you know that those are leaders that can handle it, that can take it.
Yep.
You know, I think it's really important to know who you can be vulnerable with and who you can be honest with at work, you know, and to find those people that when you're going through difficulty, you've got your road dogs. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's a road dog.
Yeah.
Not everybody's got your back. Not everybody's, down for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we look for in the workplace is, okay, I can have associates. I can have people around me that are coworkers and people that I do great work with, and I'm maybe a team member. But when it comes down to it, these two people, these one or two people, or these three people, I know at the end of the day, if I need to reach out for help, if I need a hand, if I need a shoulder to cry on, if I need somebody to take a moment with me outside of work and take a walk with me out of the building and give me a moment because I feel like life is too much right now, I've got my people.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage everyone that's listening, like, we'll get into more of the self leadership piece of it, but I think it's really important as leaders in that concept that we curate experiences where our team members get to know each other.
Yeah.
That they're not just getting together and talking shop talk the whole day and talking business, but people get to know each other on a human level.
Right.
We're seeing that at Wiley Metal in Marion, Indiana, where they're rehumanizing that experience, and it's really impacting the employees, man.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge on that aspect. Second thing to transition into, now that we recognize some of these signs of burnout, understanding why supporting employees goes beyond just wellness and benefits. And we've seen a lot of good companies doing a lot of great things. Round Room, our office here, has a lot of great opportunities. Got areas of support groups, got areas for you to just kind of relax and do something to keep your mind right, whether it's physical. There's a beautiful walk by.
I was walking through the hallway earlier today. Yeah. Somebody was asleep on one of the beanbag chairs wrapped in a blanket.
Nice. Just
during
chilling.
Lunch. Yeah.
Just chilling. And so, some of those things, when I think about those things, I think about the value of the work-life harmony. Right.
Yeah.
And we just went dark. You got to wave your hands in the air in the studio there. Turn the lights down low. Put some music on it.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. See, it just takes one little thing for our ADD to kick in, and we're off balance. But why supporting employees goes beyond the wellness, right? Understanding the value of work-life harmony and encouraging those healthy work-life rhythms, how to keep your life in rhythm. And some of that is really by setting reasonable expectations and really fostering that culture that respects, keyword respects, Ryan's boundaries, George's boundaries, your boundaries, whatever they may be, between that work and personal life. Having that understanding. Again, it goes back to that open culture of communication, to where, hey, I understand you got things going on at work and life. How's that going for you? That communication. Again, it's a relationship that ultimately is fostered through trust with each other over time, right? It's not just gonna, hey, you're hired now, tell me your life journey and how we're going to do this thing
yeah.
together. There has to be some vulnerability on both the leader side, as well as expectation of an employee being vulnerable.
Think that's important. I think it's more so that the culture is curated through setting the example.
Yeah.
When culture has good leadership, it turns out to be a good culture. And the reason it turns out to be a good culture is because good leadership shows up different. Right. They show up in the type of ways that you're talking about. They're aware of the work-life harmony aspect, right? Yeah. If you have two wheels and one is misaligned, right?
Yeah.
Actually, both are.
Right.
So you can't have alignment if one of your wheels is misaligned. Right. They're both misaligned, and the bike's not going to work. And so that kind of idea around like, are we showing up as leaders with the people that are working for us in mind, not only recognizing those smoke signals, but encouraging beyond just having some programming.
Yeah.
Like really showing up and getting to know our employees and building those strong, positive relationships between us as a leader and those that are on our team, but also curating that, as I mentioned, between team members, right? Because it's going to be really important that your team members have more than just you to go to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like everything does rise and fall with leadership, but also like we have to, as we're going to talk about in this next session next week, we have to know how to lead ourselves well.
Right.
Through this as well. And so I think not only setting the example as a leader, but also then curating experiences where people can live that out themselves and say, okay, what does work-life harmony look like for you? Here's what it looks like for me. It's really hard to create a team that has work-life harmony when you have a boss that's like a hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and there's
for sure.
cultures like that. And some people like to work in those kind of cultures. I'm not like taking away from that type of stuff, you know?
No, I think it comes down then to encouraging the employee voice.
Yeah,
right?
Like
what
do they want? What's their
there's feedback, where there's that ongoing conversation, where there's suggestions, whether it's, hey, even within employee recognition and rewards, we talk about those things being part of the whole wellness benefit. But what are some ideas, right? How do we demonstrate our thoughts and our needs towards our stress or our burnt out? And how can we then explain, hey, these are some things that are meaningful, that impact me, and bringing them into that conversation on decision making. Not just, as we say, it's easy for a company to just roll out things and say, hey, this is what we're going to do for the employees. But what would it mean if you say, hey, what does the employees want or desire that we can do for them, right? Versus being a mom or dad saying, this is what you have to do, you're my child, and as long as you're in my house, this is the way it goes, right? The workplace shouldn't be ruled in that way, right? It should be encouraged to say, hey, we care about you, and one of those ways that we're going to show that we care is by listening to you and have you in that meaningful conversation.
So does it make sense to ask the question, what are some attributes of this workplace that could potentially contribute to your burnout?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would even go back, and I'm thinking about our conversation a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, with Darren with Qualify. And I go back to, what are some things that we can do in the interview process? Understanding, some of those triggers, what causes stress, what typically causes, knowing some of those things, so that, as we talked about, because one of the stats that came up in the research from Lighthouse during that talk is that people that stay with the company tend to have a relationship with that person who recruited them a little bit longer, right? And so I got this big old thing, and this is my fault because I got this big old thing right in front that's blocking blocking our light there. But one of the things that we have, and I'm moving it very gigantically now, as if it's not blocking.
If it goes
still
off again, it's fine.
Yeah, just preach me down.
I'll just preach it.
But having that meaningful relationship, right? And so asking some of these probing questions in the beginning, we know, hey, these type of things lead to stress, right? Something that leads to stress early on for some of the people that I was leading was, hey, I don't like it when you email and say, hey, we got to meet, or you message me.
Yeah.
Hey, I need to meet with you.
Yeah. Because
without giving me detail,
like
it creates anxiety
I
and
love
stress.
bringing that kind of
thing right?
Up, yeah.
Because those are just different triggers. So as leaders, what's triggering our employees' stress and burnout?
So this is, within coaching, we call these safety norms.
Yeah.
So when I start coaching with you as a client, one-on-one, one of the things that we set from the very beginning is, what are the safety norms, right? Which means I want you to come into this coaching relationship and partnership feeling as safe as possible, because the safer you feel in communicating, and the safer you feel in terms of like knowing that what we talk about is confidential, or knowing, to a point, right? Like, unless you're doing something illegal or harming somebody else. But those type of things, like, speak to also the diversity of experience that you're hiring as well. When we think about, there might be safety norms for my wife, Katara, as a Black woman, different than safety norms for myself, right? For those that aren't watching, I'm a middle-aged white guy. Yeah. So safety norms are different. Safety norms might be different for someone who has autism, right? And there might be different safety norms for them than there might be for someone else. But having that conversation allows for, I think, right from the very onset, I like that you bring it up, is like, how do we deal with burnout from the interview on?
Right.
And that's part of the way to do that, because then what that allows for, right from the interview forward, of those questions that they feel comfortable answering, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to answer all those questions, but even if that's a part of the onboarding process, they've already been hired, so they're a little more okay with saying, hey, these are some safety norms, and they, to your point, they may not say everything all at once, but you learn about that person over time, and you say, okay, I need to approach that conversation differently, right? Because that's going to cause them stress if I just send them an invite to the principal's office and they don't know what they're showing up for.
Yeah, exactly.
That stresses me out, yo.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would stay up at night with anxiety if my boss sent me an email like, hey, can we meet tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does something. So, thinking about some of those stress factors, questions and things of that nature. Before we wrap up, I want to and talk about this third and provide some strategies that can also shield against burnout, especially as we go into, as we mentioned earlier, into the Mental Health Awareness Month and beyond. You said that you had something for me.
Oh yeah. Let's do. This is going to be a come on, man.
A come on, man. All right, perfect.
This is a come on, man, and this is all about how to not rehumanize the work experience. Gotcha. All right. Okay, here we go. This is Come On Man, brought to you by The Culture of Good. All right.
You like that? Boom, baby.
Now we'll have light the whole time. All right. Okay. So this is on Reddit Jobs, the subreddit Jobs. And this person applied for a job and got a rejection email. All right. You ready?
Oh, boy. Does it say like what kind of job or industry this is?
Oh, man, I wish. No. And as a matter of fact, they white out the company name.
Perfect.
Yeah. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, well, you can
go ahead and say it. I guess I'll guess
here's
the company or industry.
So, thank you for your time and interest in our business, and we wish you all the best in the future. And as a weird extra little thank you, we would like to also offer you this discount code, thank you 15, which will give you 15% off any of our products when applied at checkout. They're literally.
Yeah. So you ain't got a job here, but you can spend some money.
Yeah. We know you don't have a job, but if you plan on spending any of your savings in the meantime while you're looking for a job, here's 15% off.
Come on, man.
Come on. I'm going to hit that.
That's great. Yeah. That is great. All right. So as we, that was good, man. There's a few companies here locally that I think about, but I won't mention their names.
That might do something like that.
Yeah, that could do something like that.
Yeah.
I even know a few friends like that as well. May have worked with one. But as we're wrapping up these next 5 or whatever minutes we go on, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it could be an hour. Knowing us, we can talk all day, right?
We'll see.
But want to talk about some strategic. I'm always about the takeaways, and I think a lot of people. This is one of those times. If you're watching and you know who you are, there's about a handful of people that have mentioned, "Hey, I need to pull over the side of the road to take notes." We get that all the time on the podcast. This is a note taking moment that I want to give some real meat here into strategy to shield against burnout. And we talked about smoke signals. These strategies may be, hey, here's the water hose, here's a fire extinguisher, things to spray and to shield or protect, whatever it may be. Become fire, what is it, resistant?
Yeah.
Is that what they are?
Fire retardant.
Fire retardant. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. But let's talk about some of these strategies and pinpoint. And I'll just mention one. Obviously, the simple thing for workplaces to do is to raise that awareness, make it known. Because sometimes we go through things, and as I mentioned earlier, the first time I experienced burnout, I didn't know what the heck was going on.
Yeah,
I didn't know why I suddenly didn't love what I once loved doing. Right. Love going to this place, love serving, love supporting. But there was a desire of not want to be there. And some of it was, for me, conflict. As we talked about last week, these go hand in hand. But if we're raising that awareness, whether it's launching a campaign or, creating an awareness, especially in the month of May, because it is that month, but also educating. I think is a huge piece for me, because the ignorance and the lack thereof of knowledge that I've had on this matter led me to just assume that it was time for me to leave. Yeah. Right. That my welcome, people didn't want me there anymore, because you start thinking what you're feeling is because they don't want me here anymore. Right. There's so many different thoughts that come into my mind. And as I'm reliving this out, I remember the stress and the things that I was going through. But really understanding even in how to deal with that stress management and implement that. Talk a little bit about the raising awareness and what that can do, even from a workplace culture, but also just as a company in general.
Yeah. As you were talking, I thought about how beautiful it would be to see CEO, president, owner, executive standing in front of a company and saying, here's what we know. Right. Burnout's real. Your mental health is important to us. And in raising awareness, as we think about doing so in a way that provides an experience that people recognize, okay, this is a real thing. When we talk about what's prioritized in what we talk about and communicate to people from a leadership perspective, when's the last time leadership you've talked about burnout? Yeah. When's the last time we raised awareness in any communication at all beyond an email or a mental health moment where we bring somebody in for a break or something like that? What about really having a concerted effort, as you talked about, a campaign of sorts where we prioritize this conversation? And I just think it's a really powerful idea to say, as a leader, I know that burnout exists. I know that how I've experienced it in my work life. And if I've experienced, I know that my team members are experiencing it. And so we need to have this discussion. Right. We need to have a talk. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? A come to Jesus moment around our mental health and emotional health. And let's just talk about this, and let's get it out there on the table, because it's not something that any one of us are afforded the opportunity to avoid. We're all in it. Right. We're all in the midst of this, and we're all dealing with different levels of stressors, and all of those mean something differently to all of us. But at the end of the day, raising awareness is huge. I think also going back to one of the points that you talked about is that work-life flexibility. That the harmony requires flexibility. There has to be the way of work needs to be more than just cut and dry. Either you put in this amount of time or, Right. Yeah.
And I'll add to that, not just the flexibility, but normalizing true time off.
Yeah.
Right. Like if your work schedule is Monday through Friday
too,
and they're supposed to be off Saturday and Sunday, don't text and expect a response right away.
right.
There's family that they have outside of work and those hours. I think also, for me, the bad habit that I created for myself was, hey, I'm taking vacation.
Yeah.
And what did I often do? Every vacation, and still to this day, and it's horrible. So my next trip in October on that cruise, I'm not taking my work.
That's how we're going to pick up on the next session on caring for yourself. It's
like normalize true time off and encourage employees to take their vacations and or their mental health days when needed, and setting the standard. Don't even set a tone. Set the standard that when they're off, it is necessary for them to respect their time, and we will also do the same.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to respect your time, not to talk, reach out, call, don't worry about work. I don't care if it's going to go downhill while you're away. I need you to be the best you when you come back. And part of that is disconnecting, right? And refreshing your energy. Yeah. I think about it in this sense. I love one of the things that I do. I don't do much of it a lot, but I enjoy playing video games, especially now that I got a 9-year-old he's loving this Fortnite and all this stuff, and basketball. But like having a wireless charger, sometimes you need to charge the battery. Yeah. It's easy for me to try to find something to plug my controller in so I can keep on going. But realistically, I got to disconnect my batteries, plug them in, and let them charge. Yeah. And maybe that means I have to have time off unless I got a backup battery, right? Yeah. Yeah. We have to disconnect our battery, our heart, our soul, our energy from work, and really refresh and revive.
And so as leaders,
it has to be okay.
And as leaders, we need to normalize that for our team members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that setting an example, because oftentimes, and I'll flash back to myself in the retail days, man, we would go on vacation and we'll still be like, hey, sales are this, or, why is this ticket this way? And our employees, we're setting a standard there because our employees are like, I thought they were on vacation. I thought we were going to get a break from them.
Right.
Kyle Wainwright. But he's, we were steadily on the phone. Gary Von Mar. I'm just naming names right now. Shout out to my boys from the Genius Phone Repair days. But I mean, we were all, there was a hustler leadership mindset in our younger days where it wasn't normal for us to think what the impact that we were truly having on not just ourselves, right, but on our team members as well.
Yeah. I think kind of lastly, as we wrap this up, is like, what resources do we have? We think about AdCard, it is raising awareness and going through that process. Yeah. Similar to what we're talking about. And the other thing is like enablement.
Right.
It's like, how do we empower people with the tools, with the resources, with the access that they need in order to manage their stress, to self-lead, to have the space to be able to normalize flexibility and time off and taking PTO time without feeling like, it's not really time off, or they're going to feel bad about taking it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So really creating, and empowering employees to be able to have the tools and knowledge to prioritize their own mental well-being. And that's really what we're leading into with next week's session. But that is our role as a leader, is to lead.
Yeah.
And part of how we're leading is emotionally. And we're not just leading people in the sense of business. We're not just growing a company, we're growing people. We're growing humans. And so the more we can rehumanize the work experience, then the more we can attract true humans that bring their soul to work to our workplace. And that's really what we're wanting at the end of the day.
And encouraging, and we're gonna kick off this next episode next week. But encouraging that self-care practice.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll get in depth with that and what that means, but really truly promoting that self-care activities such as, I think of, mindfulness exercises. Qatar, your wife, does a great job. Her app, Excel, does a great job, especially for the Black and Brown community. But even physical activities and taking those breaks are important on that. And so when you're thinking about these strategies, and I'm sure some of you may have other strategies that you can use, feel free to join in the conversation and add those to the chat as we're wrapping up here. Ryan and I always, we love to follow up. If we don't catch it, and I try to stay a little bit close to the laptop and catch some of these comments, and we appreciate the responses, whether you're DMing us or commenting live on our thread there. We're grateful for those things. And so make sure that you're doing something, not just Ryan and George said so, and I learned this on Champion Your Culture, the podcast, but make sure that you understand that these things should be, because it's people and all people are different, tailored fit on how you're dealing with stress, the signals, how you react to somebody else who you may think is going through a burnout phase, and communicating those things. It's all different and unique in its own way. As you're creating this culture within your organization, I think it's important to have an ongoing communication, as we often say, and get that feedback from your employees and your team members to make sure that for your house, Mama used to say, as for me and my house, this is how we're going to do things. For how you're going to deal within your workplace, and deal with those things, be able to be modified and improved internally as you roll out these initiatives over time. But I think it's important. I know Ryan and I both stand on the support of those who do deal with burnout or the mental health. There's always support there, and we can throw some of that information in the chat as well. If you are dealing with mental health and need somebody to reach out to, there are opportunities and ways. And as always, we're available as well to help coach and support you throughout that. And so, I appreciate you, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I'm excited about next week.
Next week's going to be good. I love talking about myself. So.
All right. Next week we're going to come in. This is from the employer standpoint. Next week we're going to talk about self-leadership as an employee.
So it's going to be a good time.
Yep.
I guess I'll see you back here next week, and all of you back here next week on
Champion Your Culture.
Thank you for tuning in to Champion Your Culture. We hope today's episode has sparked new ideas and inspiration for your journey in leadership and cultural development.
Building a culture good is a collective effort. If you found value in conversations today, please subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on your favorite platform and share this episode with your friends and colleagues.
Your support helps us reach more people and spread the message of impactful leadership and positive cultural change. Don't forget to visit cultureofgood.com to explore how you can become a certified culture champion.
Every week, we're here to bring you insights and strategies that matter. So join us again for more empowering discussions. Let's continue to champion a culture of purpose and passion together.
Until next time, keep leading with heart, and let's make a positive difference in the world. And we'll see you next week on Champion Your Culture.